I'm Bradley Denniston, and today I'm going to show you in this video how to make sure your vocals never get lost in the mix. I know the chorus gets really big and sometimes your vocals just get lost. The drums take over, the bass, the extra synths, etc. I'm going to show you some tips, tricks, and tons of game in this video. So make sure you subscribe to the Waves channel. Beep, beep, right here. Let's get into it. Vocals that never get lost in the mix. Let's dive in. First off, let's listen to this phrase. This is a chorus part for a song that I wrote, produced, whatever. It's called Haunted by You, and we're just gonna listen to the chorus. It's stacked up quite a bit, but typically I like my lead vocal to be the lead vocal and everything else to sort of support it, right? So this is the lead vocal in the chorus. Let's hear it. By you. It doesn't sound bad in any sense. It just doesn't have really that record quality. Everything's not tied together. You don't have the depth. You don't have the vocal really standing out and up front, thick. Kind of feels thin almost, right? So here's the lead vocal. The first thing I'm going to do on this, I'm going to make sure that I get some tuning going, right? Let's just do Waves tune real time. And I know the key of the song is in A, and the way I set this is I'm just going to hit A chromatic. And reason being is because I like the chromatic. I don't want it to lock so hard to the major scale or the minor scale unless I'm doing it for an effect. Okay, so chromatic's a really great way to get around it, just kind of, you know, giving me some good tuning and locking things in a little bit. Another thing I like to do is just play it back and play around with the note transition and the speed. So let's hear it and let's set it. By you. You're giving me all that I wanted. Now I'm being haunted by you. You're long gone by the morning. Now you got me haunted. Very, very light and exactly what I want. I just want to keep it in pitch, really, right? Without going through the process of doing a bunch of manual tuning that's going to take me forever. I just want to keep the flow going of my mix and my vibe. And as I'm mixing, I'm constantly thinking about, yo, what does this vocal need? How should it feel, right? So I kind of try to paint with the plugins. So Waves Tune, awesome plugin for this and just to get things locked in and get started. The next thing I want to do is probably hit it with a little compression so it's not going up and down. Right? This vocal is already compressed on the way in, so it was compressed when it was recorded, but we can always do with just a little bit more kind of gloss over the top. And for that, I always love to do the CLA 76 or the 2A. Even the 3A is really nice. It's just a little bit more buttery. The 2A is going to give you a little bit more of a peaky sound. It's really smooth, obviously opto compression. And then the 76 is pretty aggressive because you have a transformer input and transformer output on the original 1176. And this models that very, very well. And it's very, very fast. So I'm going to go with something a little slower like the CLA 2A in opto. And I'm just going to go usually for this about 3 to 5 dB of compression. That's what I'm looking for in the gain reduction metering. So we're just going to push the peak reduction and then we're going to mess with the gain to make up. By you. You're giving me all that I wanted. Now I'm being haunted by. Great, now we're keeping it right, front, center, and punchy and in your face, and it sounds great, cutting through the mix very well. Next thing I like to do is do some parallel stuff. Of course, a lot of people like to just reach for EQs, but I do a lot of my EQing in parallel. So parallel compression, parallel widening techniques. I find that there's a lot of EQ and reverb returns. So when you put a reverb on, you're gonna get more thickness, maybe in the 500 or the body of the vocal. This vocal definitely needs that. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build a widening chain with you. And this is one that I build, I use all the time. I don't have to build it every time, but this is one I use in every mix I ever do. Always, okay? So this is like a vocal, I just do this all the time. So I'm gonna go to the bus here and I already have it set up and I'll break it down what I'm doing here. It's called vocal thickener. I also call it fat boy vocals, you know? Gotta get that thickness, eating those cheeseburgers. You dig? So the first thing I got on here is the Doubler 2, which is just one of my favorite plugins of all time. And I think a lot of people would agree. I've been using Waves plugins for over 20 years now. I started using them when I was about 19 and I'm 40 years old now. So I've definitely learned which ones I really love and are my go-tos and which ones are brand new and I want to mess around with. But there's definitely a handful that I just use on every mix, and most mixers do. So here's what I do on this. I start with a Pensato doubler, and typically I mess around with with some things. I take down the high frequency boost that he usually has on that preset, and then I might take down the middle, and I might even bring up the sides, and you can gain up the sides by just simply dragging up here, right? And go like 5.5 or something, negative 5.5. And what we're doing here is we're just kind of tucking the middle and we're bringing up the sides so that we don't get kind of like that doubling effect on the center image of the vocal. So that's really important to this. I do that first, and then I do the S1 imager just to spread it a little bit wider. Now, I've heard people say like, oh, this is going to cause phasing issues. I've never, ever had anyone complain about phasing issues in my records. So yeah, don't believe that. Don't believe that hype. We're not mixing for mono now. It's 2024. You know, we're trying to keep things lively and big and wide and just super, super fun and cool. So, you know, feel free to experiment. You know what I mean? There's no rules here. All right. And then before this, sometimes, or after this, but typically before, I'm going to do a little EQing so I could just focus on the mid-range. So I'll do the REQ 4 just so I can have some extra bands if I want to push the mid-range a little bit more or whatever. So band 1, I'm going to do a roll out all the bottom, and I'm going to bring this up probably to like 300, 250, somewhere around there. And then the top, I'm going to go to the 6th band here, and which is just a bypass. And I'm going to go low pass on this, and I'll probably go down to like, on vocals, I usually go to like 3K or so. Sometimes I'll go even further down, like 2K, because I don't want to peak out those areas. I don't like a whole lot of 2, 3K in the sides on my vocal. I like more so like the 1.4K, 500 hertz sometimes in the sides to thicken out the vocal. So if I do that and I take band 2, I can use this to kind of search around for the thickness in the vocal and the body. And sometimes that's even right around like 900 or so. A lot of people say, oh, that's nasal. That's nasal. It's like, well, just depends, right? Everything's different. There's never a hard, fast rule in mixing. Just use your ear, right? So here we go. So I'm going to boost a little bit there, and I'm going to filter out the top and the bottom, and let's send from that bus to this send effect. And I'm going to solo out this lead vocal so you can really hear it, what it's doing.
By you, you're giving me all that I wanted. Now I'm being haunted by you. You're long gone by the morning. Now you got me haunted by you.
It widens the vocal, but it also just kind of like makes the vocal more of the center, right? So if the vocal was this much of the center, now it's this much of the center. Another technique I use to make sure I never lose the vocals is parallel compression, and I'm sure everybody's very familiar with parallel compression. But the way I do parallel compression on vocals is I'll knock it to a bus, I'll option click to make sure I'm sending 100% to that compressor. I'll do the 1176, the CLA 76, and I go to the attack. I go like pretty much the fastest, and then I back off a little bit. So I'll do like maybe 6.54. And on the CLA 76, you are reversing these, right? So the 7, the bigger number, is the fastest, and the smaller number is the slowest on both the attack and the release. So the release I like to set around the middle on a parallel compression, and the slower you set the release, the more thickness you're going to get in this compression, okay? So if you want it to be fast and letting go really quick and punchy and transient, then you want your release to be a little bit faster. But in this case, I'm gonna go kind of slower, gooier, so it just kind of holds together and pushes. So let's hit this with like maybe -10 to -20 dB of compression. It's gonna be really hard.
By you, you're giving me all that I wanted. Now I'm being haunted.
I'm gonna just bypass the parallel compressor in and out, muting it.
By you, you're giving me all that I wanted. Now I'm being haunted by.
Wow, right? So that just puts that vocal right on top. It does not move. The parallel compression is such a key to making sure your vocals just stay on top and stay in your face. I'm always keeping in mind as I mix my vocal that once I put reverb or delay or anything on there, it's going to sort of bring the vocal back into the mix, right? So that's what I'm gonna do lastly, is just kind of tuck it back in, and again, use reverb for EQ. I do that quite a bit. So I will just insert reverb quite a bit
because most reverbs, especially from Waves, they all have like a blend knob. They have a wet dry, so why not just insert it? So we're gonna pop on the RVerb, and one of my favorite things to do is just go to a preset, and my favorite presets here are Dave Pensato, JD here. And then what I do with this is I bring the high end back up a little bit, and I take the low end down a little bit, so we're focusing more on the mids. And this all is cool, I like that. And then I take the time up or down depending on what the record needs. This is at 170 BPM, but I want a reverb to just kind of like be floating, okay? So I don't want it to be like, I want it to be like open the whole time. So I'm just gonna take the time up here to maybe 3 to 4, right? So 3.5 or so. And I will play around with the pre-delay. I'll put this at like 20 to 30 milliseconds. You know, you can go even further with certain songs depending on the BPM and stuff. But yeah, I like the pre-delay up. It's going to tuck the reverb back and separate it. So here is the vocal lead soloed out, and we will blend this in, and a little bit goes a very long way on the wet dry.
By you, you're giving me all that I wanted. Now I'm being haunted, haunted by you. You're long gone by the morning. Now you got me haunted, haunted by you.
That's it. I mean, I from here would just finesse this quite a bit and get the volumes really right. But this is really a vocal that's going to stay up front, but still have a lot of dimension in the back. It's got width, it's taking over the center image, it's thick, it's full, and it sounds great in the mix. So let's bypass everything we did and just give it a nice A-B, and we'll tuck the vocal into the mix where we like it.
By you. You're giving me all that I wanted. Now I'm being haunted by you. You're giving me all that I wanted. Now I'm being haunted by you.
And there you have it. That's a vocal that's very much up front and it's not moving. And if you guys like this video, definitely show some love on it and share the video. All right, and I'll see you next time. Peace.